So let's talk about, I don't know what I want to call this video. Light skinned women are chameleons, because that's really what they are. And they really should be called out. But the whoever left a comment, and actually it was something that I was trying to um, not avoid, but make sure that I made the separation and the distinction in my own video, that the women that were on the OT Genesis clip were light skinned black women. Actually, I didn't even really pay attention to the woman in the background. I just paid it, but they were lighter skinned. They were not dark skinned. And I thought, highlighting that and making that distinction, I made my point and I moved on, but I see that I didn't do a good job of it because I was being called out for anytime it's a light skinned woman, it's generalized to black women, but if it was a dark skinned black woman, it would be dark skinned black women particularly. Right. Now, I don't think that it would be that way, but this is what's being said. Um, a black woman having a nasty attitude would just be, black women. But there's this issue, and I do see where many black women are coming from, because black women, dark-skinned black women, or just black women in general, have been singled out. And when I say black women in general, it's really brown to dark. It's brown to dark. That's what people really mean when they say black women. They don't really, light skinned women get their own, special sacred category, where, none of the negative stuff impacts them. As Kodak Black said, they're still dainty and feminine and ladylike and softer and all this other stuff. And there's a lot of light skinned women that they play that up. Now, I think the ones that are really irritating are the chameleons, because there's definitely light skinned women that they from day one they just play the dainty and feminine role, and that's it. And they don't have a negative, attitudinal, confrontational reputation. Even the black women who are like that, they ride the coattails of being light skinned or non-black or ambiguous or whatever, or the spillover, from the expanded light skin universe, where they don't get that stigma. Now, a lot of black women jump up and they scream foul, they scream colorism, right? But I'm like, okay, but where does this, what is the black woman attitude, or what is the black woman culture relative to the rest of the world, or relative to the rest of other women? And are light-skinned women a part of that culture? Now, black women will say, yes, light-skinned women are a part of, because they don't like being singled out. Dark-skinned women don't like being singled out. Brown-skinned women don't like being singled out. And it seems like light-skinned women get a pass mainly because the men find them attractive. Light, dark, whatever. If a man finds a woman attractive, she's going to be able to get away with more shit than if she was unattractive, or in his eyes he deems her unattractive. That's without a doubt. She's going to get away with more. An attractive woman is going to get away with more than an unattractive woman. If the unattractive woman and an attractive woman have the same amount of sass, then the attractive woman is going to be able to get away with more. With the unattractive woman, she will be deemed, her behavior will be deemed, intolerable. Now, obviously, with a colorist is going to deem a light-skinned woman, her sass is tolerable, and a dark-skinned woman, her sass is, insufferable. And that's what it's going to be, right? And that's where the big issue, comes into play. But Captain Solo and I, we've had this discussion about this, back and forth for quite some time. It's been an ongoing, topic of conversation. And, Captain Solo, he calls out light skinned women all day, has major issues with them. They're just their bullshit. I mean, a perfect example. If you really want to spot this chameleon bullshit, look no further than BK Chat Miss Angola herself, where she sat up there straight out of Angola t-shirt with her African, earrings on, literally in the shape of the continent of Africa. And she was talking some dumb shit about being black and pro-black and all this other shit. She obviously got what a dark-skinned man, as light-skinned women tend to do, because they like the thirst of dark-skinned men, and they know that they have no special place, in the racially ambiguous category in which they actually belong. But then when they did that, like how they do the Atlanta Housewives and do like the end of the season thing, where they all sit there on the panel. So at the end of the season, she had to go to this like panel, and then she goes and gets this Marilyn Monroe dress and gets this front lace wig, to have her hair all the way down her back. I'm like, oh, trying to not look like the true African, Asiatic, original woman that you were claiming to be, when she was wearing her straight out of Angola t-shirt, right? Because basically, if you don't know, Angola was a Portuguese colony, and there's many descendants of half Portuguese, half Angolan people in Angola, right? So you'll see a lot of people with last names like, DeSantis or DeSantis or however you say, names like that, right? So they're descending, so you have light-skinned populations that are in Angola, and she's one of them. Okay. And light-skinned women, they leverage their light-skinned privilege because, again, there's only three people in the black community: light-skinned women, dark-skinned men, and dark-skinned women. Light-skinned guys got kicked out a long time ago, at least in the African-American community. People act like they don't exist. So it's very, for somebody like Captain Solo to be able to identify it, it's very easy for him to identify it. The funny part is most light-skinned men that I talk to, they don't recognize that they don't belong. Captain Solo most certainly recognizes that he doesn't belong and knows that he cannot sit on the Wakandan throne, and it's stupid. And so when he sees light-skinned women do it, like Lisa Ray being a queen mother in Africa, it's the most ridiculous shit in the world. Now, the thing is like, it's like this, right? Okay, who defines black female culture? Is it light-skinned women or is it dark-skinned women? And again, what does it mean to be a dark-skinned, black woman? And what is the behavior of a dark-skinned black woman, right? So, when Cav and I, we were going back and forth about this, I brought up China Mac, right? Because we got a couple things to say about China Mac, and I got a video coming talking about this whole Oakland Chinatown thing, and I'll get to that in a minute. But this is the interlude, right? But China Mac, right? He grew up, I think he was in foster care, and he grew up in, around black people, talks like he's black, dresses like he's black. Hell, he even raps, right? So China Mac, when you look at China Mac and you listen to China Mac, he acts like a stereotypical inner city black man. That's what he acts like. Now, if China Mac went out there, especially the way that black people also accept China Mac, they don't say, "Oh no, China Mac, you're not down with us." They go, "Oh, China Mac, you're down with us because he's street. We give him street cred. We respect his gangster, all that," which is something that I'm going to cover later. But I'm saying, if China Mac went off and did something foul, right? People would ascribe China Mac to black male behavior, right? If China Mac, he went to jail for 10 years, right? What do you think the Chinese people, say about China Mac? Especially the ones that are the lame Chinese. What do you think they say about China? Oh, see, he did all that because, it's that damn nigger culture, right? That's what they're going to say. That it's that damn black people culture. And that's what got China Mac caught up. And that's why he went to prison, because he was adopting black people culture. Right. But that's how China Mac acts. You know what I'm saying? Even I, as a black man, I can't look at China Mac and say that, I don't see the demeanor of a black man. right? Even though I don't act like that, even though we both, continuously say, nah, I mean, nah, I'm saying, right? Which is just an area thing. But I'm saying even I recognize China Mac acts like a stereotypical black man, right? In many of his idiosyncrasies, we'll say that. I'm not saying he thinks like a black man. I'm saying his whole demeanor, because there's certain things that China Mac does and says, which I would say is very not like a black man, because some of the things that he says are specifically beneficial, to his community, and he reflects upon that, where a lot of black men are clueless on that front, which is something that I cover in this upcoming video. But another example, I pulled up Honey Boo Boo Child, right? 2 years ago, no, almost 2 years ago, because it was 2018. Because since it's the beginning of 2021, Honey Boo Boo Child, she, basically got a whole bunch of backlash from people, because now she's like grown and shit. And people were like, Honey Boo Boo Child, you need to stop acting black. What does that mean? Is Honey Boo Boo Child acting black? When she was up there being sassy and talking about, oh, honey, and all that shit, sounding like, some Southern black woman. Why does everybody think that? You think it's just out of nowhere? So when Honey Boo Boo Child's being sassy, we should say that that's just a sassy white girl? How come nobody says that? Even black people. How come nobody says that? You see, there's a part of it that black women do have to own, in terms of, this sort of sassy behavior. There's media that plays into it, like the actress that played Pam on Martin Lawrence. That wasn't the greatest look for black women. Or any of these particular neck rolling, sort of roles. But, for a long time, black women have thought that was cute. When I first came online back in, what was that, 08? I specifically remember sisters with their, you can't handle a strong black woman. What does that mean? I can't handle a strong. What does that mean? We're not like those weak white women. Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? You see, I don't know what just happened. You're putting yourself in a different category. Okay, you're putting yourself in a different category. There's different mannerisms and idiosyncrasies, and who defines that culture? Black women who are what? Brown to dark skin. Now, with light skinned women, right? It's nice that everybody wants to reorganize the race and say that, these women are not black, they can't represent us, and yeah, that's cool. But you still have that whole cultural aspect, which is another area that black people really haven't tackled. Black people, men and women, seemingly let everybody in as long as they act and they behave a certain way. But then when it comes to phenotypic representation, then everybody wants to kick each other out. Now, the phenotypic representation is the area where that black men have gotten right. Black men don't let light-skinned men represent them. Black men don't let other races of men represent them physically. Even when, light-skinned guys, Obama, my president is black, my Lambo's blue, and all that other stuff. Yeah, Obama can play that lane. You know what I'm saying? But let Obama or let some light-skinned dude come through and try to compete with dark-skinned men on the throne of hypermasculinity, and it's going to be some problems. Okay, so where black men fail is that whole cultural aspect. Like, again, what we're going to talk about with China Mac and allowing China Mac into the room because, he's down, right? Where women fail is black women fail in two areas. They fail in the phenotypic area. Again, Lori Harvey is a win for black women, because she's with Michael B. Jordan now. When I thought Michael B. Jordan was the biggest colorist of them all, but now all of a sudden it's a win, and you got women having to make videos again and again reminding black women that this is not a win, right? But then I'm getting yelled at because they're like, again, the whole, and I get it because it's the whole atmosphere of the conversation that is online. There are brothers that, they'll slam the shit out of a dark-skinned woman, but, let a light-skinned woman have some sass or some attitude and they act like they don't see it. That definitely goes on, and I totally get sisters, frustrations on that front. But, it's like, remember when I did that video with that black woman, that light-skinned woman, and she wasn't even light-skinned. That woman was so yellow that you would have thought that she was Hispanic. When I first saw her, I thought she was Hispanic. She may be, like the Aisha Curry, Steph Curry, lineage type of thing. But I'm like, look, nobody looks. Hell, they're even blacker than she was, because she didn't even have, 3C hair. Her shit was just, Spanish as fuck, in my opinion. That's just what it is. And I got into an argument with her, and she was like, I am a black woman. I'm a black woman. You can't tell me I'm not a black woman. And she wanted to identify so much with black women, and then turn around talking about, I only date dark-skinned men. Right? And again, yeah, you only date dark-skinned men because you want to ride off of a bunch of self-hating colorist dudes' thirst. That's really what it is. Let's be real about that. And it's like any of these women that culturally identify with dark-skinned black women and embody the attitudes and the sass, dark-skinned black women don't say anything. Y'all don't object. You know what I mean? Y'all don't sit there and try to, do the exact opposite. You say, we're going to flip it. Let them light-skinned bitches be sassy with the attitude. I'm going to sit here and act like a coy, dainty, delicate woman. Like, y'all don't have that reputation. And we can talk about the media and all that, but there's a part of that you got to own. You got to own it. And see, the thing is with a lot of these light-skinned, women, that especially the ones that the ambiguous ones, a lot of them, they like Cap, as Cap always puts it, light-skinned people, biracial people are homeless. They don't have a community. And in the black community, they're black royalty. And so they're always trying to assert or prove their blackness by going over the top, and especially when specifically talking about, women, light-skinned women, biracial women, ambiguous women, a lot of them go out of their way with, I'm a black woman, let me prove it. And they go over the top with their sass and their attitude and all that shit, trying to prove how much they a sister just like sisters. It doesn't just come out of the void of nowhere. They are acting like brown, too dark-skinned women. Now, again, this is where Cap and I, we'll have a slight, disagreement. That he's like, nah, they're just acting like a bunch, just a bunch of sassy women. And I do get him on that point, but I'm like, no, culturally speaking, they're acting like, stereotypical black women. And that's where the sting is. That's where it hurts. Because again, even as an EL, I can't run away from the fact of the matter that China Mac acts like a stereotypical black man. Can't get away from it. I can try all I want. I don't act like that, but the vast majority of the representation of black men and the fact that he's in the hip hop game and the fact that the black community has essentially, or black men have essentially embraced him, at the end of the day, that's who China Mac behaves like. There's no getting away from that. And when you get these light-skinned women who grew up in the black culture, and the majority of the black culture are dark-skinned and brown-skinned women, you know what I mean, or dark-skinned and brown-skinned, people. I mean, that's what makes up the majority of the black community. And then when you get the light-skinned people within the community that try to emulate or grow up in the culture with all the rest of black people, I'm like, no, you're not going to be able to run away from this. You're not going to be able to run away from this. It's like there is no light-skinned culture in the black community. Again, going back to what Captain Solo said about light-skinned people being homeless. There is no light-skinned culture. So when light-skinned women are acting, with sass, they're acting like black women. They're acting like brown to dark-skinned women. That is what they are acting like. Now, the real problem here is the fact that light-skinned women the reputation of that does not stick. Now, I think there's multiple reasons why it does not stick. One being, obviously the colorist men giving them a pass. That's number one. The other reason it doesn't stick is because you have the women that play chameleon and they jump back and forth. They go, oh, I'm a dainty, delicate flower. And then when it's time to get sassy, they get sassy. The media, because light-skinned women are not depicted in that way in the mainstream media, even if they are like that. I used to feel that way about Whitney Houston. I didn't know that Whitney Houston was a hood chick. Because the way that you saw Whitney Houston and The Bodyguard and all that other stuff, I thought Whitney Houston was like the most sophisticated, elegant black woman that there was. On top of being beautiful. But the reality is Whitney Houston was a crackhead. That's the reality of the shit. I didn't know that. You know what I mean? The white folks that were trying to promote Whitney Houston, this is like Whitney Houston's like the one time that they were like, we are trying to present a positive image of a black woman who's actually in reality a damn crackhead. They made sure that the way that she presented herself, they wasn't trying to show Whitney Houston all high and all that other shit that she was doing. They wasn't trying to show that. They were like, no, Whitney, we need you to be, the black woman of pop. Which a lot of black people, again, going back to my point, felt some type of way when Whitney Houston, with the genre of, go watch some documentary on Whitney Houston, and they'll tell you where they didn't feel that Whitney Houston was authentic enough. And then in came Mary J. Blige. They talked about this in the Mary J. Blige video where they were like, yeah, when Mary J. Blige came out with, Real Love and all that other shit, like, yeah, that's really speaking to sisters. Yeah, that's really speaking to the struggle love and how we living and everything. We ain't trying to hear Whitney Houston with all that pop shit, what I mean? Tell me somebody, all that shit. Like, no, they wasn't trying to hear that. So, what was I going to say? It was something I was saying about the light skin. Again, this is an area where, Cap and I, we have a slight disagreement. And I do mean slight, because I do get, where he's coming from and calling out the women on the chameleon shit and all their fake ass jumping back and forth between white privilege and, being a sassy black woman when it's convenient and then turning it off and all that shit. I do get that. But, there's no way that black women are going to come through and be like, oh, see, that's light-skinned women doing that. Compartmentalize that. I'm like, this is from the backbone of brown to dark-skinned women's culture. This whole attitude and all that other stuff. The light-skinned women being the, minority of the community. They're imitating y'all. When you see these light-skinned women that get delusional like that woman, I am a black woman, getting delusional, talking about original woman and we're different. And I'm like, chick, did you look in the mirror today? You know what I mean? It's like when Angel Ramirez, when he first, was making videos, man, he had all this Afrocentric shit in the background. And I remember Cap and I, we used to fucking crack jokes about that shit. He's hit me up like, send me a video like, man, look at this video. I look at the video. He be like, does this motherfucker not know what he looks like? that shit was killing me. His fucking hair all down all draped over his shoulders and shit. He's like, does this motherfucker not know what he looks like? I was like, I guess he doesn't. And honestly, Captain Solo is probably the only light-skinned man that I know that understands. He's like, man, we don't fucking represent Wakanda. It's like why would I be trying to sit in a throne that I clearly know doesn't belong to me? But I think that has to do with the fact that light-skinned dudes got kicked off of the bus in the 90s and all that. Chico DeBarge and all these niggas is gay, and if you light-skinned, you don't represent Zulu dick. You know what I'm saying? Like when you go back and you watch that scene in Jungle Fever and she says Zulu dick, like Captain Solo knows that shit don't represent him. You know what I'm saying? When you hear a woman, say some shit like, or when he hears a woman say some shit like, I like my man, like I like my coffee. He knows that he doesn't represent that. When he hears a woman say, I like chocolate, he knows that she ain't talking about him. And the biggest thing for Captain Solo, he's like, if I hear a black woman say anything about, how much she's not interested in Hispanic men, he's like, oh, I'm out. Because that's exactly what Captain Solo looks like. He's like, oh, I'm out. If she says Chico DeBarge doesn't move her, Cap's like, okay, I'm deuces. I'm not going to sit around, with this. But see, because you got all these thirsty, dark-skinned dudes self-hating and everything, jumping up and down about, light skins and exoticals and biracials and shit. That's why light-skinned women stick around, and trying to leverage that shit. And again, just like Miss Angola, I totally get Captain Solo's frustration, especially on the front where these women, will reject light-skinned dudes and talk about, I want my black kings. I only date black kings. I only date dark-skinned black men. Yeah, they did. They only date dark-skinned black men because dark-skinned black men, got issues with being dark-skinned themselves, and, they thirst over these women, and that's what they like. They like the attention that they get from these dudes. Light-skinned dudes ain't gonna jump up and down. But you got the same hair as me. But you got the same fucking hazel eyes as me. So the fuck what? But when they go over to the dark-skinned dudes, to the death, motherfucker, she's mine. That's dark-skinned dudes. But in terms of like, the behavior shit, yeah, I know that there's black women in the light-skinned women in the black community, just as sassy. They grow up in the same environment, go to the same schools, have the same demeanor and all that stuff. And here's another thing. This is another thing that goes on. There is a difference between inner city light-skinned women and light-skinned exoticals. This has to be stated because a lot of times, if we really want to be honest and break this shit down, a woman like Halle Berry versus a woman like, give me inner city light skin. I can't think of it. Damn, I'm trying to think of a inner city light skin. Maybe Jada Pinkett, but I even feel like she's too light. I'm talking about just a chick that, like the chick that was on the OT Genesis was arguing with. Although she looked like she could have something else in her background. What I'm saying is, you get there is a difference between women who are 50% another race, where they might have a white mother and maybe the argument could be made that they'll have less attitude or something because they don't have a black mother to emulate, versus a woman who just has, maybe a dark skinned mother and a light skinned father, or a light skinned mother and a dark skinned father, but they still grow up with two, what would be considered, black parents in the inner city. I think that there's a difference with that situation versus a situation where there's at least one non-black parent, where that non-black parent is bringing in non-black culture. And so maybe that's where, some of the confusion, ends up coming into the room. But the main reason I emphasize, that, okay, these women are different, with the OT Genesis, skit, was not to just say, oh, well, now we're going to spread this around, to all black women. I'm focused on the culture. Because last thing I want is sisters coming in, brown and dark skinned sisters coming in. Yeah, that's just light skinned women. Yeah, we don't act like that. That's bullshit. That is bullshit. Y'all do act like that. And, either, this is the culture, or, the light-skinned women are adopting it from you all. Because like I said, brown to dark-skinned women, you are the quintessential black woman. Now, I don't know whether or how, the community is going to get this idea of the sassy black woman to change. I don't know. I don't know whether that's going away anytime soon, because there's a lot of conversation that keeps focusing on, the light skinned women and what the light skinned women are doing and what the light skinned women are getting away with. But yet, go through my videos, go through all those blog talk radio shows, go through, the Cat Fu, series with, him arguing with Don Napoleon and all that. Now I don't know what the other woman who was on the show that sounded like, she smoked a pack a day. I don't know what she looked like, but, Don Napoleon ain't a light bright. And a lot of times, women be tying all this shit back to melanin and original woman status and Earth Mother Goddess and all that other stuff. I'm like, you're invoking dark skin, you're invoking a complexion. When you say shit like original woman and we ain't like the others and this, that, and the third, I get the frustration that it's like light-skinned women get a pass. I totally get that. That shit is fucked up. In other words, the reality that you do have light-skinned women that got the same belligerent attitude. But notice what I'm saying right there. Got the same attitude that, dark-skinned women get charged with. Right? And then you'll have somebody like Kodak Black talk about, oh, how they're so soft and how they're so this and that. And again, I think we got to be real careful because I think that you have some men who will say that in ignorance, thinking that they're looking at some light-skinned black woman when they're really looking at a woman that's 50%, another race. And, maybe it's different because, again, you got one non-black parent. So, that those cultural differences, I'm sure, come into play, especially when we look at the fact that a majority of the interracial relationships and the children that come out of the interracial relationships are notably black men with non-black women. So many of these biracial women have non-black mothers, and they'll come through and I'm a black woman, I identify as a black woman, and da-da-da-da. And but they really don't. They don't share the same cultural context. But then you have other women that, whether they identify with black women or I want to say this, whether they have a black mother or parent. No. Whether they have a black mother and they're getting the culture from that or not. You have some women that just think it's cool, to act and behave like a black woman. A lot of non-black women look up to black women. They look up to them as being, sassy and that it's liberating and everything else like that. But like I've always said, it's like they let black women be the spear tip, of feminism, and then they step over the black woman's, broken body, when that spear becomes dull because it's the first thing, that goes up against, the system, or the first thing that goes up against the patriarchy or whatever. Right. So none of the other women take any of the damage, but it's always the black woman who's the spear tip. And, even black women themselves have drank the Kool-Aid of thinking that, just being belligerent and attitudinal confrontational is somehow empowering. So they embrace it, but yet they're the only ones that get damaged in the process. Right. It's like, even white men. I've heard white men talk about how, they feel some type of way about, they're like, why am I doing all this stuff? Why am I, providing for a family and everything else like that? Because it seems like you black guys just get the pussy off of the strength of nothing. Right? Because, one guy just broke it down to me. He just said, I don't think that the white men that created, this system, because we talk about white supremacy, he just said, I don't think that they really understood female nature. You go out there and you paint these black guys as these strapping mandingos and all that other shit. Yeah, that might keep them distracted from power and the resources and all that other shit. But at the same time, you're making them look cool and you're making them look hyper masculine, not understanding that little Susie is attracted to that. Not understanding that, she's looking at her husband like, you're just a lame, and looking at Jamal like, oh my God, like, and then you got the whole aspect of pornography, which again, who was that white woman? Gail Dines, I think her name was Gail Dines. She wrote a piece, and I think you can't find it now. Like now they took it down or whatever, but it was called King Kong and the White Woman. And in the piece, King Kong and the White Woman, it talked about white men's sexual insecurities and the way that the black man has been painted as this sexual god in order to create division between working class white men and working class black men by making the black man a sexual threat, going all the way back to Birth of a Nation. But she cited the type of humiliating cartoons that would often be in Larry Flint's Hustler, where they would have like little skits, and then they would have, the white man's there, and then, the black, postal worker shows up, and the next thing you know, he's banging your wife. That has now evolved to, and I talked about this before, John Persons. Have you ever seen John Persons, racist cartoons that play on these racial stereotypes of the impotent beta male, nerdy white male, and then some super cockstrong, muscular. All the black men in his cartoons look like Terrell Owens in his prime with no shirt on. All the black men look like Terrell Owens. And I'm like, what is this? Like, what paint? And then they'll have the white man have a big pop belly, and they'll have like the little bubble, and it'll be like, oh my God, my white husband's penis is so small. Oh my God, what I wouldn't give for a big black man dingo dick in my mouth. It's like, really? And it's, again, just the way that they try to pit people, against each other. But black people got to be more clever than this. And I'm saying, I guess my question to brown and dark skinned women is, are you trying to get away from that stereotype? You know what I mean? But just pointing out like light skinned women are sassy too. Again, if they're being chameleons, they're being chameleons. Just like these white women that fake it till they make it. They play coy until they get to the gold, and then next thing you know, half, nigga, half. again, they know how to keep their attitudes in check long enough to get to the goal. So I'm saying, instead of focusing on light-skinned women and what they are doing or what you feel that they're getting away from, my question is, are y'all trying to drop the, sassy, attitudinal, confrontational black woman trope? Are y'all really trying to drop that? Because even when I watch Kevin Samuels, all this, I'm a boss bitch and all this, like, that shit still exists. And it's like, again, even just on sheer numbers. Okay, if we took just a snapshot of the black community, are the majority of black women light skinned or are they dark skinned? They're dark skinned, brown to dark skinned. That's what the majority of black women are. The majority of black men, brown to dark skin. So just off of sheer numbers, a light skinned woman being sassy, is never going to trump, the amount of dark women being sassy. It's never going to trump that. Pound for pound, it's never going to trump that, because the numbers aren't there. So, I just feel like the focus should be on dropping, that sort of, that stereotype. I don't really see a whole bunch of sisters trying to drop that stereotype. I see them still thinking in 2021 that it's cute. And again, I know that there's brothers out here, again, if a dark-skinned woman does it, I don't like it. If a light-skinned woman does it, oh, it's kind of cute. I ain't even focused on them. Me personally, I don't like that shit. I do not go out here and I got a problem with strong, independent black women, and I'm like, oh, let me go out here and find me a strong, independent, light-skinned woman or white woman. I'm not looking for a strong, independent anything. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for dainty, feminine, docile, submissive, cooperative. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for any of these women that have any of this, I got a bigger dick than you. Like, that's not cute. But, it's already been discussed about, letting these women in the room, and then, when they do something foul, then you want separation. That's already been discussed. Do light-skinned women get away with murder? Oh, yeah, they do. You're not going to hear me deny that shit. A lot of them get away, with murder. You know what I mean? But some of them, they don't try to play into that being, some hood chick with attitude and sass. You know what I mean? Because, I don't know, maybe they're benefiting from, light skin and white privilege too much. Maybe they're trying to move up the corporate ladder. You got light skinned women that don't date dark skinned dudes, that don't date black men, period. You do know they exist, right? So, class is another thing. That's another factor. Every light-skinned woman is not trying to be sassy, and every dark-skinned woman is not trying to be sassy. But culturally speaking, you got way more sisters trying to be sassy. Even one of the things that, Captain Solo and I talked about, and I agree with him. Yeah, it does stand out when you have a brown to dark-skinned woman who doesn't have, that attitude. It stands out. And maybe, when it comes to light-skinned women, them not acting like a sassy black woman is not a surprise, because truth be told, they're not even being seen as a black woman. It's like what Cap used to say about what some woman had said to him one time. They were like, damn, you should have just told them that you were something else. And he was like, why? He was like, because then they could handle what you were trying to do in the way that you were treating them. Because in other words, they had a certain level of expectation of what a black man and how a black man is supposed to operate. So when Captain Solo would come in the room and say, they'd be like, oh, well, what's your background? Da 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 da. Or what are you? I don't know how that conversation would come up, but he would be like, I'm a black man, and that would totally throw them off. But this black woman told him, had you said that you were from somewhere else, then the way that you were operating and the way that you were doing things, would have been more understandable. I want you to think about how fucked up that is. Talk about just saying niggas ain't shit. Because you already know that Captain Solo wasn't bullshit and had his shit together and everything else. But and then not only that, it's also a bad look for sisters because it's like, well, what type of bullshit ass niggas were you dealing with? So here he's doing the right thing, and they can only accept it if they thought that he was a non-black man. He wasn't dark enough to basically be on some nigga shit that black women would have accepted and been like, oh, okay. Which is like just the most retarded shit in the world. This is why this community cultural shit, I'm telling you, this shit has to die, yo. I mean, and I don't even know how that's going to happen. When you have, these sort of mentalities and these coping mechanisms and these fail-safe devices and all this shit that people, feel most comfortable with. Which isn't going to get us anywhere, but I'm just saying it's what people feel most comfortable with. But like I said, this is how I feel about it. I totally get, like where, Captain Soul's coming from. Hell, I'm the one that pointed out that whole Miss Angola shit because he didn't even watch the clip. I was sitting there and he was always bitching about her and, what the fuck she's on because he zeroes in on light-skinned women and their bullshit. So I watched that clip. And you got Miss Angola up there, and she got her straight out of Angola t-shirt with them African continent-shaped earrings. Look, as light-skinned as fuck as she is. You know what I mean? Racially ambiguous as she is, with her green eyes. I think she got green eyes or some shit like that. And then I'm watching. Okay, she's supposed to be pro-black. She rocking red, black, and green and everything. And then as soon as it was like, oh, I got to get ready for the cameras, she went and got this front lace and then put on this Marilyn Monroe. I'm like, oh, so in other words, when you want to be a down sister, you going have your head wrapped and your big old hoop earrings and in the shape of Africa and shit like that. But then when it's time to get glammed up, oh, now you want to look like Marilyn Monroe. I'm like, oh, bitch, you full of shit. And I sent it back to him. And then he was like, oh, I didn't even watch it. Man, fast forward through that shit. And, I mean, we had a field day with that shit. And I was like, this is what you're talking about right here, even though he didn't even see it. I was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I see why you get pissed off. You know what I'm saying? If you a light-skinned, racially ambiguous woman and you want to be, the blackest woman in the world, you know what I mean? Then be that and be that all the time. You know what I'm saying? Don't be over there, oh, I'm the blackest woman in the world, and you sitting there throwing your fist up with dark-skinned sisters and, neck rolling with them and all that sass and shit, and then, some chocolate muscle-bound brothers walk in the room, and then all of a sudden you take your head wrap off and you start shaking your hair out and shit and sweeping it over to the side and letting it drape over your shoulders because, oh, I recognize that these self-hating dark-skinned black men are in here and I'm going to leverage this light-skinned privilege over dark-skinned women. Like, bitch, fuck you. Fuck you. And light-skinned women do need to be called out about that. But in terms of this cultural, behavioral, attitudinal, I'm like, no, black women, you can't run away from that. You're going to have to do a lot more work, to dead that stereotype. That stereotype exists because of the behavior you exhibit. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's looking at Honey Boo Boo Child saying, oh, she acts like, a white girl. Just like nobody's looking at China Mac saying, oh, he's acting like a suburban white kid. No, he's not. He's acting like a black man. That's what he's acting like. That's what he talks like. That's what he sounds like. I can't run away from that. As hard as I may try, I can't run away from that. So I just wanted to, give my opinion. Y'all can feel free to disagree. But that's how I feel about the shit. Because I see all this focusing on what light-skinned women are getting away with. And they have attitudes too. My question is, why do you have an attitude at all? That's my question. They have attitudes too. Why do you have an attitude at all? Anyway, that's my video. SWP out.